Hey, thanks for listening. So, I've been thinking about an online conversation I was having with my friend and former colleague, Jeffrey Ginsberg. It was one of those reflective conversations where we spoke about our heyday in the advertising business, where we held a place at the top of the industry. We congratulated one another on the brilliance of our success. And then the conversation paused. We looked at one another. Our faces were not the faces of the 45-year-olds who ruled, and then we became circumspect. Jeff and I shared a lot of experiences in our industry, and although we came up through the ranks differently, there was a kinship there. You see, Jeff worked his way up from the bottom, beginning as a messenger for an advertising agency and then steadily moving up the ranks to improbably reaching the corner office. He made his reputation on the stewardship of the likes of Samsung, Motorola, Brother International, and AT&T, just to name a few. He would eventually launch his own agency called Badalato-Ginsberg. And then life happened. So that's what we'll yak about today. What's up, everybody? David Yakir here for iHeartRadio's Yak About Today. If you're like me, looking in the mirror and still seeing 25 and are familiar with the years 46 to 64, then this is the place you want to be. So get up, get out, put your headphones on, go for a run, and listen to what we yak about today. And we are back. I'm David Yakir. You're listening to Yak About Today, and I've got my dear friend Jeffrey Ginsberg here. And we're going to talk about a writing that he's been doing lately and how I think it's relevant to a lot of this audience. So, Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're very welcome, David.
So, I can't remember. Have we done a show before together?
Never.
Never. Okay. So this is virgin territory for us actually having a public conversation based on a lot of our private conversation. So let me do the setup for everybody here. So Jeffrey and I have known each other for years now. We came out of the same industry. We both came out of the marketing industry. We were both CEOs of relatively large companies. And we had a very similar sort of progression as we got older, or we got wiser and more mature. And so we were talking the other day, and we were really breaking down, what is it that we're doing now? How do we feel about what we're doing now? What led to what we are doing now? And so Jeffrey and I talked, and he started writing something. And I was really intrigued because selfishly, I felt like he was writing about both of us in a way. And so anyway, Jeffrey, so from your perspective, right, we had this conversation, you started writing, right? Why? Why did you actually write?
I started doing this because I was very frustrated, out of frustration. And so I started writing. I mean, I'm not the president of a company anymore with lots of people that answer to me. I'm not getting a weekly paycheck. And I was just getting depressed and down and saying, well, what am I going to do now? So I started writing, and that's where I am.
You're writing down, and I've read, and I'm going to have you just read the opening of this so people know where your starting point was.
Okay.
But you were writing because you were disappointed where you were at this point in your life, or some people actually just write to help figure out where they are at this point in their lives. So tell us what the impetus was, and maybe you could read the opening. I think it's the opening paragraph because that sort of sums up the direction you're going into.
Sure. But I'm more frustrated and not knowing what I'm going to do next, and I know I need to do something next because I am a worker. And I've worked all my life, but I'll start reading this a little bit, so maybe you'll get it.
I do. I have one question, just on what you just said. So, okay, you're a worker. Is the frustration because financially you didn't end up where you should have ended up, because a lot of us who had successful companies and went through the whole recession where things blew up, we ended up not where we thought we would end up. So is your frustration, two things, I'll ask you two questions. Is your frustration financial, or is your frustration that at this point of your life you don't know what your passion is?
I can answer that. I can answer that three ways. Yes, I didn't end up financially the way I thought I'd end up. Two, a lot of it has to do with that I got cancer, prostate cancer, years ago. And then number three is I don't know what my passion is anymore, because I can't go back into my.
Okay, I just want to sort of let my audience know that right now Jeffrey is sitting in his Hamptons house as opposed to his apartment in Manhattan. So if there's anybody out there actually feeling sorry for him, don't. So anyway, let's start the story. Okay. And why don't you take us actually right down to the end of where it says New York before you get into the advertising agency.
Okay. This book is not about me, although I am the author. It is about the so many people my age battling the end game, the last chapter. The problem, it is not the end of my life. It is the end of work life as I know it. My therapist says my brain has retired. After all, didn't I earn the right to retire at age 65 and a half? Of course I have. Of course, fiscally I can't. But most importantly, I get excited when I'm making money. It is what defines me. It's an ego thing as well as a financial obligation to my domestic partner. No, I'm not gay, but even if I was, I still feel the obligation. It's the way I was raised. Like so many people my age, we started at age 12 with a newspaper route early in the morning, then moved on to cutting lawns, then getting a job as a busboy in our community diner, working in a supermarket, in a sports and hobby shop, a camp counselor, and then taking a loan for college, working in the housing office, changing beds and light bulbs, then a jeans store, and the college cafeteria. And my big break was marrying the boss's daughter.
Okay. So what I liked about that, besides the fact that I identify with it, I think I started in your sort of, as you moved along in jobs, I actually started in the supermarket first. That was my first. I was a bag boy. And then I graduated to being able to put cans on the shelves facing in the right direction. Okay, so then you went through life, the normal course of life, and you right. You went into the business, and that big break you had just being at the right place at the right time and meeting the boss's daughter. You helped build a company. What was it, from 5 million to something like 50 million?
It was like from 1.5 million to 50, yes.
Right. And take us, again, so much of the biography you're writing about, so many of us identify with. So things did not work. You had children. Things did not work well for your marriage. Right.
Uh-huh.
And but you were a star coming out of an agency that you built, and you went into your own business.
Right. I went into my own business because I kept asking for stock in the company. And the boss, who was my father-in-law, kept saying, sure, eventually. And finally, he didn't give me any stock. So I said, well, got to go. So I did. And I started my own company.
And that went really well.
That went really well. That started slowly. I got my first assignment to create a jewelry catalog, and it was in those days that jewelry was a big deal. And then from there, we just started growing and growing and growing, and here I am.
And that met the fate that many of our businesses met at a certain point. Probably, what are we talking about? 2008 or something, or?
Well, that's not exactly how it ended.
Oh, okay. Tell us the story.
All right. It ended because I took on a partner, and she was a little bit manic depressive, and she would be she would be yelling out of nowhere, yelling at all our employees for no reason at all, and they were getting very frustrated. She was also yelling at our clients when they didn't pay in 30 days.
That could be a good. That could be a good thing. I remember clients not paying in 30 days and making payroll.
But our clients paid, and they, sometimes it was 60 days. But I understood that. But then I always had to end up apologizing. A funny story is that our accountant, I never get an accountant was pissed off because she started yelling at him, and he called me up and said, "I'm done. I'm finished." I said, "No, Paul, you can't be finished. Sorry." And he stuck it out. He stuck it out, and we've got a very large client that was Bell South. It was a licensee, but it was Bell South, and the company billed for us. And it was a small company, about $1.2 million, and they stayed with us a while, and then they were getting frustrated, and they left too. And that was basically the end of the company, and I left too.
The reason I wanted to have that part of the conversation was just to put into context what's going on now. In the story that you're writing, you're sort of rethinking your life, right? Uh-huh. There's a part in the story, I don't know if you can turn to it, I can tell you. Do you know the paragraph where it says, "How do I start"?
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me do it because I thought this was an important piece. You write, "How do I start?
Right.
What's next now? How do I go from boredom to passion? What's going to put that fire back in my belly? Maybe I start by getting out of my own head." I think that's what's important about that phrase to me is that's the very basic type of thinking we do when we're trying to reinvent ourselves. And, you put down in the age, are you 65 and a half now? Is that it?
65 and a half, yes.
That's right. You're still a young man. Remember when 65 and a half used to be old?
I don't remember. My grandfather was 59 when he passed. There's a whole
That's thing. Right. It's a whole different generation. My Bubby, grandmother, was 45 years old, and I thought she was 100. So we're a much younger generation, which is the reason I do this show. But the whole idea is, first, it seems, in the first part of your story, it seems to be about finances.
Right.
How did I find myself here? And that's led to something else. And this is something I really identify with. And I think I found it, and people are listening to it. That's what I found. You talk about, it's boredom now that you're suffering. Are you supposed to just go after something financially lucrative? Or at this stage of life, are you looking for something that you're passionate about that can possibly also be financially beneficial?
Well, one of the things that we all do is that we would like to have enough money not to worry about it, which is the way I always was. But when you get to be our age and you're not really working, that's one of the things you have to resolve. But being our age, we're not going to be a CEO of a company. We're not going to be a marketing director anymore. We're not going to be any of that stuff because no one's going to hire us. We have a short lifespan. I don't care if you live to be 70 or 80. They're looking for somebody who's younger, and I get it, and I understand. So what do we have to do? We have to figure it out. We have to understand what makes us get up in the morning, because I still get up in the morning. It's at 4:30. I get up, but then I go back to bed. I used to get up and go to work, but I wake up at 4:30, and then it's 7 o'clock in the morning. What do I do today? How am I going to excite myself? What makes me happy? What's going to make me happy, and what's going to make me get up in the morning, I guess.
All right, hold that thought. I got a few questions based on what you just said, but we have to do a break now for our sponsor and advertisers that really make it possible for us to talk. All right, so I'm David Yakir. I'm here with Jeffrey Ginsberg. You're listening to Yak About Today, and we'll be back on the other side. I want to take a moment to talk to you about New Vision Eye Center. For the last couple of years, they've been a sponsor of this show, and I couldn't be prouder. I've met so many people that have walked up to me and thanked me for recommending them. I hear all sorts of stories about how they've worked miracles. And as you know, I've been a patient of New Vision Eye Center for years. So when I say go see Dr. Minotti, Reinauer, Tate, and O'Brien, it's because I wouldn't trust my eyes to anyone else. And we are back. I'm David Yakir. You're listening to Yak About Today, and I've got my good friend Jeffrey Ginsberg here, and we're going to continue a conversation about a piece he's in the midst of writing. So we were sort of hitting the subjects of passion, boredom, finance, and all these things seem to be coming together. But you asked the question, so I'll ask it for you, and you can answer it.
All right.
What next now?
So I'll answer it by reading a little bit about what I wrote. And actually, it's a little bit about you. I'll start with my dear friend started a radio show in Florida. Old people, baby boomers. You know, the I will never get old, don't trust anyone over 30. And I still play basketball and tennis, although I have bad knees. He invites experts on his show, example, people that know about Medicare, insurance, aches and pains, et cetera, interviews them, records the interview, and then you and I can go listen at a later date if we are interested in the subject. I think it's very cool. Since I am his target audience. But what is the coolest idea he has? It is to get into the podcast business. He's gone as far as to create a website called Podgeist. He should make millions. And this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ear.
It's not over for him. In fact, it's just the beginning. But you were thinking, as you read this, good for him. I don't have that kind of passion. Yes, you do. If you are into flowers or grass or pot, you can mow your lawn, your neighbors, or even plant something at your home or your neighbor's house. Let's say you live in a condo, like a lot of people in Florida. What can you do if you like to plant and live in a condo? You should take a walk over to the grounds maintenance department and ask if you can help. Seriously. What about if you live in the city, like New York City? You could volunteer at the local Y, helping to coach basketball, or volunteer at soup kitchens, something worthwhile. But my best idea is to invite people I know and those I don't know over and have a small discussion group of what we are going through as older people. It is an open forum, so we'll talk about anything, aches, pains, sex, no sex, whatever we want. It's like my friend's radio show, but with many people and few experts. Just regular people that have lost their passion or can't find a new way to make them happy. Now I'm stuck. Where do I begin? I believe I need passion and desire to do what I've just written about. Maybe this exercise I started is just an exercise in futility. I really don't have any answers for anyone. I do realize these few things. There is never enough time in the day to just sit down. I set my alarm for 7. I let the dogs out of the crates. They run out into the backyard, do their business, which I happen to clean up twice and sometimes 3 times a week, and then come in and I feed them. Let them out while I'm emptying the dishwasher and make coffee. Then I take a shower, get dressed, check my emails and texts. This must be boring you, my reader, because it sounds like no life to me. I make the...
Okay, stop there, Jeffrey, because I want to talk about that. One of the things, when I started the show and our target audience, I think I went in with a wrong assumption. I went in whether people were financially set or not financially set. I went in for the fact that they were going to continue defining a life, still contributing. And what I found is, and this is what I found interesting in your reading, is that people were doubtful. They couldn't figure out what to do. So for the perfect example, I'd like to give you some different stories from our communities that I think you can relate to. So one person retires, right, with the money in the bank. It could be a few $1 million, but totally retires, and has the grand house and everything, but makes the choice that now I'm free to relax, and sits in the chair with the TV on and has drinks at a certain point during the day. Then there's a very active couple who every morning walks their 5 miles to stay in shape, which is exactly what we should all be doing. even, as we progress, getting older and older. And they, build things in their house. They're constantly painting the house. They're putting together everything perfect. Everything, they spend their time on their property, and yes, they do the lunches at the restaurants and the dinners at the clubs. Then there's the third, whose total satisfaction really is golf. What's missing from what I see, and I think you're getting at this, is that what we're supposed, is that just retirement? Are we supposed to be productive at 65 and a half? Are we supposed to be contributing? Should we be starting something? Should we, or should we be laying back, except if you can't lay back and you're not financially set?
I actually have an answer for you. I think that even at our age, and I know you're a little bit older than I am, but even at our age, we should.
Oh, you're less than 25?
No, I'm 20. Oh no, I'm not 19. Okay. 19. Ought to be 19, or how ought to be a millennial. Anyway. I think we should still contribute. That's I said at the beginning, I like to make money, and it gets me happy, and it makes me crazily happy. But I still think that we should contribute. Not that I hate that word "give back" because nobody gave me anything. I work for it myself. But I don't think we should give back. I think we should contribute. I think we should still do something that helps our humanity, because as you can see, what's going on in the world is terrible.
Okay, I have to stop there because we are, virtually out of time. We're going to continue this, and what happens is next time I'm going to add a third person to this discussion, because I think there's another contribution that this person can make. All right, I'm David Yakir. You're listening to Yak About Today. Love you. Peace. Once again, if you are new here and listening to one of the podcast networks that carry us, consider subscribing. And if you are listening to us via radio, put it on your calendar and set it for iHeartRadio's Waxy 107.9 FM, 1370 AM, or Real Radio's 101.7. And remember, we can also be found online at iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all the major podcasting and social networks. Just search for Yak About Today.
See that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight. Or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak. Don't talk back. Don't you give me no dirty looks. Don't talk back.